everyone, we're coming into the second half of the year, which means we're going to have a lot of camera releases going on. October is always the busiest time for me personally, making reviews and testing out gear, and one of the camera bodies I'm really excited for and I speculate I'm going to be testing out later this year is the A7C Mark II, so the upgrade to this one, the A7C. So what I want to talk about is what I expect to see in this camera, and I'm not going to go off any rumors or anything like that. These are all just my own thoughts and basically a wish list of what I want and what features I think will make the A7C II a good camera. Today's video is also sponsored by Professional Photographers of America, where you can join a community of over 35,000 photographers and find equipment insurance, education, and business tools made specifically for small business owners like you, and I'll let you know more about them a little later on. The release of the A7C was a special one for me personally. I don't know if you remember or you were watching my channel around that time, but it was my first pre-release review I did with Sony, thanks to Sony Australia. It was an exciting time, and aside from that, the A7C was also itself a really exciting camera. It was, at the time, the smallest and lightest full-frame camera body to feature IBIS, coming in at only 509 grams. It was basically a mini A7 III, but since then there have been a lot of autofocus and tech improvements and video features introduced by Sony, which makes me feel like it's time for us to see the A7C Mark II. And I have to point out that while I'm recording this video right now, I have not heard anything from Sony yet. This is all purely speculation from me. I don't even know if the camera's coming out this year at all. And throughout this video, I'm also going to show you some photo shoots that I've done over the years with the A7C, including heaps of photo examples. First and most importantly, I absolutely need a front dial on the A7C Mark II, and we saw this is possible because the A6700 has one while sharing almost the exact same body as the A7C. While I was able to make the A7C work well for me once I customized every single button and function menu possible, nothing beats the speed of having that physical front dial. I always shoot in manual mode, so I love having that front dial to control my shutter speed. Having one or two more custom buttons would be awesome as well. I feel like a secondary C button on top of the camera would be an amazing addition at the very least. Since the A7C is a hybrid camera body, I would also love to see the photo, video, and S&Q switch like the A7 IV or the A6700 has stacked under the mode dial. It is just so much more efficient to have photo and video settings programmed independently and record with the quick flicker switch. The next thing I want to see is more autofocus improvements from the original A7C, and I think it's safe to say now that Sony probably won't skimp out on autofocus features with new camera releases, because the A6700, which is a crop frame camera, has practically the same autofocus system as the Sony A7R V, which is really awesome to see. This new AF tech is called AI Autofocus, and it features human, animal, insect, plane, train, and car AF in both photo and video mode, and I'm sure we're going to see this in the A7C II as well. Will there be any new autofocus features added? I think if they are, they might wait for the release of the A1 Mark II probably to show these features off, so we might not see them just yet. Before we move on, I want to tell you more about the sponsor of today's video. If you're a photographer, you can use PPA, Professional Photographers of America, to help grow your business and improve your skills with a camera. As a member, you receive benefits including up to $15,000 worth of equipment insurance and data recovery services. You have the option of full replacement coverage with a $350 flat deductible, or you can repair your equipment with a $50 flat deductible. PPA also have useful business resources such as customizable contracts where you can compare and edit documents including proposal, cancellation letters, model releases, copyright transfers, and heaps more. So if you want to join PPA, be sure to use the link in my description to get $25 off your membership. So I briefly mentioned this in my A6700 review, and this might be a controversial opinion, but in a smaller and travel-friendly camera body that shares Sony's AI autofocus tech, I don't think having a joystick is really needed on the camera body. On the original A7C, I did miss the joystick a fair amount, to be honest. While the AF in that camera is great, it was still not at the level it is today, where I can almost completely rely on it when it comes to portrait photography. I used to use IAF and subject tracking, but I still kept a small flexible focus point on my screen just in case IAF lost the subject for some reason. Having a joystick is so much easier to fine-tune your focus point to go right over someone's eyes compared to touching the screen, where I pretty much miss half the time. It's also not as seamless. You almost need to stop shooting to touch the screen to change your focus point. Compared to using a joystick, it is so much easier to continue taking photos while you move your focus point around. But anyway, ever since the release of the A7 IV, I have very rarely used a flexible focus point, and I need it even less when using camera bodies like the A7R5 and the A6700, so a joystick is maybe starting to become a little redundant. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, let's quickfire a few more things I want to see in the A7C Mark II, starting with the sensor. For me, anything between 24 to 33 megapixels would make sense for this camera body. Currently, the A7C has a 24 megapixel sensor, which I think is a good size for this style of camera for daily shooting or travel photography. I have a feeling we might be seeing the same 33 megapixel sensor as the Sony A7 IV though. It might seem like the files would be too big at 33 megapixels for a travel camera, but we now have a lot of file type options from Sony, including uncompressed or compressed RAW, JPEG, and HEIF. I would really love to see a slightly larger viewfinder or at least better magnification. The A7C viewfinder is not that great. It strains your eyes since it's small and the refresh rate is not amazing. The A6700 viewfinder, on the other hand, while it's still quite small, it's so much easier to look at because it's smoother. Weather sealing would be nice to see for this camera body. I have a personal rule of thumb that if a camera is over 2,000 Australian dollars, then it should be weather resistant, at least to some degree. I would also love to see dual card slots, but realistically, I'm going to guess they will leave it as is with a single card slot. In terms of video, I think having 4K 25p 422 10-bit video is a necessary feature. The A7C is already a 4K camera, but it was the last full-frame Sony camera body to only have 420 8-bit. Having that extra data in the video files will be great for people like me who like to color grade their footage in post. I doubt we'll be seeing 4K 50p without an S35 crop in such a small camera body. I just don't think it's possible yet. I would also like to see more refinements and improvements to IBIS as well, and the addition of active steady shot, S-cinetone, and focus breathing compensation. I think that feature needs to be a staple for all Sony camera bodies from now on. I would also like to see an improved microphone. It would be great to see some of the ZV line vlogging tech in the A7C. That way you can keep the camera as a small and inconspicuous setup without having to add an external microphone if you don't want to, or if you need to record something on the fly. You can see some recent Sony microphone tests in my A6700 review and in my video comparing the ZV-1 Mark II versus A7C versus iPhone 14 Pro Max video. Sony's internal microphones are actually sounding pretty good nowadays. I'm also sure we'll be getting the new menu. It's actually so weird to look back at the A7C and see the old menu because it feels like a newer age Sony camera, but damn, it's actually been a few years since it was released. The whole menu thing is another topic altogether. Even though Sony have overhauled their menu, I wouldn't mind seeing another big update to it. Some items in the menu are hidden so many clicks in, and I'm also not a big fan of S-Log3 being now in a separate section in the A6700 instead of being together with all the picture profiles. I really hope they don't end up doing this to all their hybrid cameras going forward because it takes a little bit longer to get to S-Log now. Finally, I want to talk about the size and weight. While I feel like the grip will get better as it has on every last update from Sony, I think it will be a benefit to the camera. The A7C grip was slightly on the smaller side, and depending what lenses you used, your knuckle could hit into the lens and it could be pretty uncomfortable to hold. In my opinion, being able to say that this is the world's smallest and lightest full-frame camera with IBIS like they did when the A7C first came out is not a priority this time. So in my opinion, I don't mind if it gets a little bit bigger or heavier to be able to fit all the features it needs, both internally and ergonomically, so it's more comfortable to use. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you want to see in the A7C II, or what camera do you think we're going to be seeing next? Because I think it's the A7C II, but I could be wrong. And don't forget to check out PPA by using the link in my description. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I will see you all next time. Bye!